So throughout the life cycle of the yeast, when you're making wine, the yeast produces byproduct waste that kind of settles out to the bottom, especially in cold temperatures. And the yeast also, some of it just dies and falls out of solution. So what you're left with after your first stage of fermentation is this kind of nice thick layer of mud in the bottom. That's what they would call the dregs in the old times. So what racking is we're taking our hoses and we are pulling the clean wine that's clarified off of the top and putting it into a new clean tank, because we don't want that byproduct ending up in our final wine. Every wine does get racked. Every beer also gets racked. Pretty much anytime you're making alcohol, because they have different words for it. In the wine industry, we call it lees. Some contact between your product and your lees is good. It can, improve the flavor, bring out varietal qualities. But if you leave it for too long, you end up getting off flavors in your wine, and obviously you don't want a cloudy wine on the shelf. So technically a wine is racked twice before it goes to bottle. The first time it's actually racked before it starts fermenting. We press all of the juice off of our grapes and we let it sit for a couple of days at cold temperature to let things that we don't want from the grape to chill and a lot of times crystallize and settle to the bottom. And then we rack our fresh juice off into a new vessel where we start fermenting with the yeast. Then the second racking is obviously when our primary stage of fermentation is done and we're ready to go to secondary. Then we have all of our yeast byproduct and we want to pull it out again for a new tank. So racking tanks and racking into barrels are conceptually pretty much the same. It just kind of differs in how we execute. So when we're racking out of a tank into another tank, it's pretty straightforward. We either sling over the top, or some tanks have special valves for racking that we basically just connect one tank to the other one and let the pumps run. When we are racking out of a tank into a barrel, it's a little more difficult. We have to use what's called a racking wand. It's essentially just a wand you put on the end of the hose that has a valve on it, and we have to kind of carefully eyeball and watch as we fill up the barrels because they're a lot smaller.